This morning, we're continuing to track the tropics in this early Atlantic hurricane season. In June, we still have possibilities for formations and potential land impacts, which is why I'm here back with another early morning update here. Uh, we've been trending away, a little bit away from development in this Caribbean region over the last couple hours here, or over the last couple days, even since about yesterday. We've been trending away from development in the Caribbean, and we've been moving towards development in the main development region. Now, the MDR, we've seen very high sea surface temperatures, a lot higher than average for June. We're looking at sea surface temperatures that we would be seeing in about August in a typical hurricane season. So that is an area for concern, which is why we're now looking at potential developments in this area, and it's going to enhance the possibilities for these tropical waves to overperform and succeed as they move through this region. Now, as expected during this time of the year, we still have this big, massive dry air here that's going to be present at least until August and really being taking a big part of this North Atlantic region. And that's due to the Saharan desert, all that sand and moisture, and not moisture, and dry air coming from this area and being pushed over the Atlantic area. But below this line right here, we do have some space for moisture, which is why we're seeing these thunderstorm activity being able to perform through this main development region over these couple tropical waves moving through here that we've been looking at over the last couple of days, especially that last one that just came out last night. And that one is what models are looking a little bit for potential development. And we're still gonna be looking at this Caribbean region, just not as much, as it's trending away from that, but we'll look at the end of the video, just to still, be careful with that. Here's one of these MDRC surface temperatures anomalies, and as you can see, it's high. Okay, it is rising exponentially since but in May, we've been seeing this rising faster than ever. Look at this one as well. I mean, it is increasing at extreme rates here, about 1 degree above average here, closing up on 1 degree. And even on the North Atlantic overall here, you can see these sea surface temperatures are increasing pretty drastically here since about late May and early June. And so this is why these models are now picking up on possibilities. Let's analyze this here and look at the GFS first. We've got a couple models looking at this here. Let's look at this the setup here. We've got two high pressure systems going to be pushing everything towards the Caribbean region or into South America, depending on how low these high pressures go here. Here, looking at this, 1020, 1016 millibars. So this is a pretty low high pressure ridge. And so we're not going to be seeing anything right now try to move up north or even above the Caribbean region just because of that high pressure there. Notice, let's look at this and what we're looking at here. This is in about 120 hours or so. That tropical wave that we've been talking about is going to be moving through here just about due west. And here's where we first get indications of the low pressure systems from this model here. Possibilities are increasing for that. We can also see here another one of those tropical waves where we do see some indications of maybe a little bit of spin up, a little bit of rotation, vorticities embedded in that. We don't see a huge lot of development with these storms here as they likely die off before they get to the lesser Antilles, just because conditions are really not favorable during this time of the year. But we do see a couple of these spin ups, which is some possibilities for development here by this GFS model due to these stronger waves moving through the main development region. And we can also see that from this icon model here, which has a little bit of a more developed system here. Again, from this tropical wave, let's look at this here. We've got this tropical wave which emerged again late last night, and they've already got a little bit of vorticity with this in about 24 hours or so. And as we move through here, they have this pretty quickly able to get some sort of moisture bubble. As I said, we have dry air here, pretty much anywhere north of this, but as it moves through here, it is able on this icon model to acquire a large amount of moisture and rainfall activity around it, which could help it develop. And the GFS does show this a little bit, just not as strong at all. And with this icon model here, it shows this as a pretty well developed low pressure system. Nothing crazy, nothing strong, but at least with a strong vortex indicator and a low pressure system of about 1011 millibars. So, and as this high pressure pulls out, as we can see, it is able to curve north a little bit, where it would likely die off in this area here, just because conditions would just become uh, really unfavorable for any sort of development. CMC is also showing similar patterns as the icon here. It has the same wave here, trying to develop into some sort of low pressure tropical cyclone and then pulling up north. The GFS is obviously a little bit less strong on this, but CMC and icon both have this similar system here, able to maybe not develop so much. And here's another one of those waves here, uh, coming off on this model specifically. I don't believe the European model shows any of this. Yeah, it really does not show any sort of development here. Just pretty standard, patterns for June. But it is something to watch out for when you get a couple models here beginning to show some sort of organizations with these systems. Now we're gonna move on back to our Caribbean storm, which we had been tracking for about a week or so at this point. And GFS is really starting to back away. It's been on its own basically. Only the GFS mostly was developing. Icon was showing maybe some sort of development, nothing really actually developing into a cyclone. And CMC was showing that same area but developing in the Eastern Pacific. Now GFS has been really interesting these last few model runs. Let's look at this here. It still has the same area of moisture and vorticity spin ups that we've seen, but it does try to favor maybe more of an Eastern Pacific. Because in earlier models, it was a little bit more east, where it was able to pull up north. Some took it towards Florida, other model runs took it, but now it has this area of disturbed weather and thunderstorm activity a little bit farther west, over Central America, and so that's really going to depend. Where do we see a convective spin up? Do we see it more in the Southern Caribbean or do we see it in the Eastern Pacific? And with this model here, it has it really spinning up into a strong vorticity. Look at that here. And a strong low pressure gradient in the Eastern Pacific in about 132 hours or so. Where in the North Atlantic, it really doesn't is unable to get much going just before because it's stuck over land, obviously. And it does develop into a pretty strong cyclone in the Eastern Pacific based on this model run. And this is similar to what the CMC had been showing now for a couple of days, where it did have some disturbed weather in the Atlantic Ocean, but at the end of the day, really developed it in the Eastern Pacific. But as we move through in this model run here, it has this again trying to redevelop a second storm in the Eastern Pacific, just because it moves over land, and it's going to be favored with a little bit more. Warmer sea surface temperatures and better conditions for development in the Eastern Pacific. So it's really unable to develop much in the North Atlantic until perhaps in about 294 hours or so, where the GFS tries to spin up some really weak tropical depression, maybe a weak tropical storm here. Nothing crazy, likely another one of an Arlene type situation where you really only got to be seeing rainfall or any sort of weather on the northeast quadrant of the system, where the bottom west and south is going to be pretty dry, perhaps even an exposed low level center. And so that's why this is really looking less likely, as this doesn't seem like a pattern for, very easy development for this system. But it is still in the realm of possibilities. But at this point, just because of how the pattern is setting up with this high pressure ridge pulling a little bit farther than anticipated, it's going to be allowing for all of this rainfall to really move into the eastern Pacific seaboard rather than going into the North Atlantic, as we'll be able to see here. And as we look with the CMC, it really has a similar setup here. It's gonna have this same area of moisture moving into the Eastern Pacific. Doesn't really develop it this time around, but it does have all that rainfall moving there over the next couple days. And something to keep in mind with the GFS, it does trend to try to if it notices an area of vorticity or otherwise rotation, it easily tries to spin it up into a full-blown tropical cyclone, even though sometimes it's just not a fact, and it's really just an area of convective activity and thunderstorm activity, which is going to have a little bit of spin up in it, but nothing really has to be called a hurricane or a tropical storm. So that's all I have. We're really going to be looking at the MDR for the next couple of days, whether any of these waves want to spin up and give us our second name storm of the year, and we're still going to be tracking closely the Caribbean region, just in case it does try to spin up something. But at this point, it is looking less likely.